I never thought I'd end up here, honestly. My name's Mike, and for almost 5 years I thought I had the perfect life with my wife, Emily. We met in college, hit it off right away, and everything seemed smooth sailing until it was. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I always believed we were solid. That was until our anniversary trip. We had planned a weekend getaway to celebrate, a little escape from the hustle, just us. I was about to propose, had the ring ready, everything set. I was feeling pretty good. I'd never felt more confident about us. But then something shifted. Emily, my wife, she's always been a bit of a bitch about how busy she is with her job, always making it out like she's the victim. She's the type who'll lie just to get her way, and I've caught her in little white lies plenty of times before. Still, I never suspected she'd cheat on me, especially not with my best friend Jason. That thought alone is what haunts me the most. We drove up on a Friday evening. Everything seemed normal. I noticed little things. She was more distracted than usual, texting furiously on her phone, hiding her screen whenever I looked over. She was snappier than normal, rolling her eyes when I tried to talk, and she kept making excuses about work emails and late calls. I figured she was just stressed, trying to keep her job afloat. Honestly, I gave her the benefit of the doubt because I didn't want to believe she'd cheat on me, especially not during the one moment I was finally ready to make it official. I thought maybe it was just her mood or maybe she was hiding something, but I brushed it off. The first real sign that something was off came Saturday afternoon. We went out for a walk along the beach just to talk and relax, something we'd done a million times before. But Emily was distant, quiet, and when I reached for her hand, she pulled away a little too quickly. When I asked what was wrong, she just shrugged, said she was tired, and then snapped at me for no reason. That's when I caught her glancing at her phone again, her cheeks flushing a little when she thought I wasn't looking. I remember feeling this strange twist in my stomach, like dread, but I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe she was just stressed, maybe I was imagining things. That night she stayed up late saying she was checking work stuff, but I saw the glow of her phone under the blanket. She was texting. It was obvious. I didn't want to push her then. I was trying to hold on to the idea that everything was fine, that I was just overthinking. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I had this gnawing suspicion that she was hiding something, and whatever it was big. Then came the next morning. I was about to get ready for breakfast when I saw her phone on the nightstand. I couldn't help myself. I picked it up, my heart pounding. I wasn't snooping exactly, but I needed to see if my gut was right. And what I found, it was the proof I didn't want to believe in. Texts from Jason, late-night texts, flirty ones, some explicit. Things that made it clear they had been more than just friends. They even planned to meet again, probably that very night. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Everything I believed about her, about our relationship, shattered in an instant. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? Were the signs really so obvious? How could she lie so effortlessly? The worst part is she's a master at spinning stories. When I confronted her right then and there, she didn't even try to deny it at first. She looked me dead in the eyes with that bitchy smirk and said, "Oh, come on, Mike. It's not like I cheated on you during our trip. It's just sex and it's not a big deal." That's her usual way of brushing things off, acting like she's the victim, like I'm overreacting for making a fuss. She kept insisting it was just some stupid fling, that Jason and I don't understand her, and that she's entitled to her own life. It was all a big lie. I could see it in her eyes. She was enjoying the chaos she was causing. That moment, I felt this boiling mix of anger, heartbreak, and disgust. I'd always thought she was loyal, that she loved me. And now I realized I was just fooling myself. All the little signs, her secret texts, the late nights, her snapping at me, were signs I chose to ignore. I was so blindsided I couldn't even process it all. I remember her telling me, "You're overreacting. It's just sex, Mike. It's not that deep." But deep down, I knew I'd been betrayed in a way I never saw coming. And that's when I started planning what to do next. After she threw that stupid line at me, "It's just sex, Mike," something inside me snapped. I felt like I'd been punched again, but this time it was different. It wasn't just shock, it was rage. How could she be so callous, so dismissive? I'd trusted her for years, and now I found out she'd been lying to my face, sneaking around with my best friend, Jason. The thought of him, of what they did behind my back, made my stomach churn. It wasn't just about the betrayal, it was about the way she dismissed it like it was nothing. That's what really stung. I remember sitting there, staring at her, trying to hold myself together. My hands were trembling, and I felt this boiling anger rising up. I wanted to scream, to yell at her, to shake her and ask how she could do this to me, especially now on our anniversary trip. I mean, she knew how much I wanted to propose, how much I had planned everything out. And she was out there, sneaking around, probably laughing with Jason, maybe even having sex with him at the same time she was pretending to be this perfect wife. It was a mess I couldn't even wrap my head around. I told her to get out of the room. I needed space, time to think, to process what I just found out. She started playing the victim, of course, whining that I was overreacting, that she's entitled to her own life, that I didn't understand her, that she's been stressed, busy, and maybe she just needed some excitement, that she was just having sex with Jason and that it didn't mean anything, that she loved me but she's also a human being with needs. I couldn't believe the audacity. She was basically gaslighting me, trying to make me doubt myself while she was out there, probably texting Jason right then and there. I spent the rest of that day locked in my room, trying not to let the rage take over. I kept replaying everything I saw, everything she said. My mind was racing with questions. How long had this been going on? Did they plan it from the start? Were there more women? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly like I was losing my mind. I never in a million years thought she was capable of this kind of betrayal. And Jason, my best friend, how could he do this? We'd been through so much together. I thought he was my brother, my confidant. And here he was, screwing my wife behind my back. The worst part is I still loved her. At least I thought I did. But that love was slowly turning into something darker, pain, anger, and a desire for revenge. I couldn't just walk away from this. I needed to think about what I was going to do next. I couldn't just let her get away with this, not without a fight. I decided I'd have to confront her again, but this time I'd do it on my terms. I wanted her to understand just how much she'd hurt me, how deeply her lies cut. I wanted to see her squirm just a little. That night I stayed up planning. I needed to get proof, more evidence if I was going to do anything. I found her secret texts, her deleted messages on her phone, everything I needed to confirm her lies. I also started thinking about how to handle this in a way that would hit her where it hurts, her pride, her lies, her sense of security. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. She'd been playing me for a fool, and I had to take back control. As I sat there staring at the phone and the pictures I'd taken of the texts, I felt a strange mix of sadness and rage. I knew I couldn't stay silent forever. I had to decide whether I was going to forgive her or cut her loose. And honestly, that choice felt like the hardest thing I'd ever faced. But one thing was clear, this wasn't going to end quietly. Not for her, not for Jason, and not for me. I was done being the victim. It was time to fight back in whatever way I could. The next morning, I woke up with this pounding headache and a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. I kept replaying everything, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Part of me still loved her. God, I wanted to believe she'd come clean, own up to what she did, and maybe even apologize. But deep down, I knew that was wishful thinking. Emily has always been stubborn, manipulative, and a total bitch when she doesn't get her way. I also realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, not after what I found out. If I was going to confront her again, I had to be prepared. I waited until she came out of the bathroom, acting nonchalant like nothing had happened. She was wearing that same fake smile, but I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes. I decided to get straight to the point. I told her I knew everything, that I saw her texts, her calls, and I knew she'd been lying to my face the whole time. I watched her try to spin her usual bullshit, denying everything, saying I was paranoid, that I was overreacting. She said she'd never cheat on me, that Jason was just a friend, and that I was blowing things out of proportion. Of course, her tone was bitchy, full of attitude. Like she was the victim here. I lost my temper a little, couldn't help myself. I told her she was a liar, a manipulator, and that I'd never trust her again. I told her I'd seen enough and I wanted her out of my life. I was done with her excuses. That's when she started crying, fake tears rolling down her face, saying how sorry she was, how she loved me, and how she'd change if I just gave her another chance. It was all bullshit. I could see it in her eyes. She enjoyed the drama, enjoyed making me feel like I was the crazy one. The thing that hurt most was realizing how much she didn't care about our relationship, about me. She was just looking out for herself as usual. Her whole attitude was, I do what I want and you can't stop me. Well, I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I told her she had to leave, that I never wanted to see her again until she was honest. She scoffed, tried to argue, but I cut her off. I told her she could pack her shit and get out, and I wasn't going to stop her. I didn't want her in my space anymore, not after this. Watching her pack her things was like slowly losing a part of myself. I felt numb and furious all at once. Every piece of her leaving felt like a punch to the gut, but also a tiny relief. I finally saw her for what she really was, something I thought I knew, but turned out I was blind for years. As she stormed out, flipping me off and calling me inseparable, I just stood there watching her walk away, feeling this strange emptiness and anger swirling inside me. I had lost the woman I thought I married, and I didn't even know how to feel about it. That day, I decided to call Jason. I couldn't just let him get away with it either. I needed to hear from him directly, confront him. I also wanted him to know I wasn't some idiot who wouldn't fight back. When I called him, he was defensive at first, trying to deny everything, but I had all the proof. I told him I knew about the affair, about the texts, about the plans. I told him that I considered him a traitor, my best friend, the guy I trusted most, screwing my wife. I let him have it, telling him I'd make sure everyone knew what he really was, an opportunist, a liar, a selfish bastard. The fallout was intense. Jason tried to grovel, saying it was just sex, that he didn't mean for it to happen. Yeah, right. That's what Emily kept saying too, but I wasn't buying it. They both thought they could get away with it, that I was too blind or too stupid to find out. Well, I found out, and I wasn't about to let them off the hook. I told Jason he better stay the hell away from me and my life, that I didn't want to see or hear from him again. I also made it clear I was going to tell everyone the truth about their betrayal. That whole day was a blur. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, trying to piece my life back together. I'd been hit so hard I didn't even know who I was anymore. The worst part was the emptiness inside, the feeling that I'd lost someone I loved, and that I'd been played for a fool. I thought about calling her, begging her to come back, to tell her how much she hurt me, but I knew that was pointless. At that moment, I realized I couldn't fix this by myself. She had made her choice, and I had to decide what I was going to do next. Part of me wanted to punish her, wanted to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. But I also knew that revenge wouldn't bring her back, and it wouldn't erase what she did. I didn't want to be that guy, angry, vengeful, bitter, but I also refused to be a fool anymore. I had to move on somehow, even if that meant starting from scratch. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing. I'd never trust her again, and I'd never let her get that close to me again without knowing what she really was. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I kept thinking about everything, her lies, her betrayal, Jason's role in all of it. I felt like I was walking around in a daze, trying to piece my life back together while also dealing with the crushing weight of betrayal. Honestly, I was sure how to feel most of the time: anger, sadness, disappointment. Sometimes I just felt numb, like I had lost part of myself along with her. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, so naive. The woman I loved, the woman I was ready to propose to, had turned out to be a complete stranger with a script of lies and secrets. I remember sitting on my porch one afternoon, staring into the horizon, trying to make sense of it all. That's when I realized I couldn't keep carrying this pain alone. I needed to do something, not just for myself, but to make sure she knew I wasn't some pushover. I started reaching out to friends, telling them everything. Most of them were stunned, some angry on my behalf. I even considered legal action, just to ensure she couldn't try to take anything from me, or worse, try to manipulate the situation. I knew I had to protect what I could, and I had to be smart about it. In the meantime, I started focusing on myself, going to the gym more, picking up old hobbies I'd neglected, trying to rebuild my confidence. I also cut contact with Emily entirely. No calls, no texts, no social media. I needed space to breathe, to heal. But the truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about Jason, about how this could have happened right when I was about to take the next step in my life. It hurt so badly I felt like I was losing my mind. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could someone I loved so much turn into a complete stranger? One night, I finally decided I had to face the facts. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. Even if it hurt like hell, I needed to confront what was real. I remembered reading somewhere that sometimes the only way to move forward was to accept the truth, no matter how ugly. So I sat down and wrote everything out, my feelings, what I knew, what I suspected, and what I wanted to say if I ever saw her again. I was furious, betrayed, and broken all at once, but I knew I couldn't keep living in limbo. Then, a strange thing happened. I started feeling a little bit of relief, not because I was over her or that I was somehow okay, but because I finally faced the reality that I couldn't change what she did. It was like a heavy weight had been lifted off my chest. For the first time since I found out, I felt like I had some control. I was angry, so angry, and that anger was giving me strength. I realized that I was still standing, still fighting, even after everything. That's when I decided I wouldn't let her ruin me completely. I had to find a way to pick up the pieces and move on, even if it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I also started looking into ways to protect myself if she ever tried to come back or cause more trouble. I changed my locks, secured my bank accounts, and told a few trusted friends to keep an eye out. I was done being the naive guy who believed in fairy tales. No, I was going to be smarter, stronger. I didn't want her or Jason to think they'd won, not without a fight. I wanted to show her that I'd rebuild, that I'd move forward, even if it meant doing it alone. But underneath all that, there was still a part of me that mourned what we had, even if it was dead now. I kept thinking about the good times, the vacations, the plans, the nights we shared. It was all so fleeting, so fragile, and now it all felt like a lie. I wondered if I could ever trust again, or if I'd be forever scarred by her betrayal. I knew I'd need time, maybe a long time, to heal. But I also knew I wouldn't forget. That betrayal would stay with me, an indelible mark on my soul, so I made a promise to myself. No matter how much it hurts, I'd keep pushing forward. I'd learn to let go of her, of what I thought our life was supposed to be. I'd find a way to be okay, even if she tried to come back, even if Jason tried to crawl out of whatever hole they were hiding in. I'm not there yet, but I was starting to believe that one day I'd get through this. That I'd be stronger, wiser, and maybe, just maybe, ready to trust again. But for now, I had to focus on healing, on building a new life without her. Because the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, that person was gone, and I had to accept that truth, no matter how much it hurts. The weeks turned into a month, and I found myself oscillating between numbness and bursts of intense emotion. I would wake up some mornings feeling almost normal, like I could get through this, only to be hit by waves of anger or sadness later in the day. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better than her lies, better than the betrayal. Still, the pain lingered like a constant ache in my chest, and I hated feeling so vulnerable. It was like my whole world had been turned upside down, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever find my footing again. One morning, I decided I had to do something drastic. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, waiting for her to come crawling back or hoping she'd finally admit everything. I needed closure, real closure, so I made a plan to confront her one last time. Not to beg, not to plead, but to get the answers I deserved. I wanted her to look me in the eyes and tell me why she did it, why she lied, and how she could be so damn heartless. I felt a strange mix of anger and curiosity, like I had to see her face, to hear her confession, to truly understand the depth of her betrayal. I reached out to her, asking her to meet. She was hesitant at first, trying to spin some bullshit about needing space, but I was firm. I told her I wasn't interested in words anymore, I just wanted the truth. When she finally agreed to meet, I could tell she was nervous, probably because she knew I wasn't going to take her excuses this time. She showed up at a local cafe, acting all confident, throwing around her usual snarky attitude. But I could see right through her. She was scared, maybe even a little guilty, but she was so used to lying that she thought she could manipulate me again. We sat across from each other in that tiny, noisy place, and I stared her down. I told her I knew everything about the texts, the plans, the sex. I asked her why. Why did she do it? Did she really think she could get away with it that I'd never find out? She tried to shrug it off, acting like it was nothing, saying she needed excitement, that I was boring, that she was entitled to a little fun. That's when I lost it. I told her that her fun had destroyed everything I believed in, everything I thought we had. I told her she was a selfish, manipulative bitch who only cared about herself. Her reaction was priceless. She tried to deny the obvious, then shifted to blaming me for everything. "You're too controlling," she said. "You never paid enough attention to me. Maybe if you'd been better, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was trying to make herself the victim, just like she always did. And Jason, sitting there quiet, pretending he didn't know what was coming. I looked at him and said, "You're just as much to blame. You knew what she was doing and you still went along with it. You're a coward." That moment I realized I was done. Done with the lies, the manipulations, the fake smiles. I told her straight up this was the end. I didn't want to yell, did want to scream, but I felt this deep need to put everything out in the open. I told her I was done being her fool, that I'd been humiliated enough. I told her I'd never trust her again, that she'd burned that bridge for good. Her face twisted into this bitter smirk, like she was already planning her next move, trying to gaslight me, trying to twist things around, but I wasn't having it. I got up, told her to leave, and I walked out of that cafe knowing I was finally taking back control of my life. That conversation was the final nail in the coffin. I knew I had to move on completely. I packed her things, made arrangements to get out of the house, and cut all ties. No more phone calls, no more texts. I refused to let her manipulate me anymore. I also told my family and friends everything, so they'd know the truth about her, about Jason. I needed to surround myself with people who would support me, not those who'd tell me to be understanding. No, I needed to rebuild my self-esteem, my confidence, and get rid of this toxic person who had almost destroyed me. At the same time, I started therapy. I knew I had to deal with the emotional fallout, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the feeling of being completely duped. It was tough, really tough, but I refused to let her win by breaking me entirely. I was hurting, yes, but I was also becoming stronger. This experience, painful as it was, taught me that I deserved honesty, loyalty, and respect. And if someone couldn't give me that, if they chose to lie, cheat, and manipulate, I had no choice but to walk away. Now I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I've started trusting again, but carefully. I realize now that I can't control her actions, nor can I change what she did, but I can control how I respond. I'm not angry all the time anymore, just a little more cautious, a lot wiser. I still think about her sometimes, about what I lost, but I also know I deserve better. The pain will fade, but the lessons will stay with me. I hope this serves as a reminder that no matter how much you love someone, if they betray you like that, you have every right to walk away and start over. Because no one should accept being lied to, cheated on, or made to feel like they're nothing. Not ever. Looking back now, I realize that the biggest lesson I've learned from all this is about self-respect. It's crazy how someone you trust blindly can turn out to be a total stranger, and how little things, those nagging doubts, the subtle signs, can sometimes be the clues you ignore until it's almost too late. I wish I had trusted my gut more. I wish I hadn't waited for everything to blow up before I started taking my own feelings seriously. Sometime after I finally cut her out of my life for good, I started piecing myself back together. It wasn't easy. There were plenty of nights I'd lie awake, replaying everything, wondering if I could have done something differently. But then I'd remind myself, I was a good man. I loved her, yes, but I wasn't stupid. I deserved honesty, loyalty, and respect, things she clearly never cared enough to give. The truth is, betrayal is a slow poison, and it takes real strength to walk away from it all, to pick up the pieces and rebuild your life from scratch. Now I see things differently. I've become more cautious about who I let into my world, more mindful of the signs that can tell you someone isn't who they pretend to be. I've also learned that sometimes The most important thing you can do for yourself is to let go of someone who doesn't value you. It's painful, but it's necessary. You can't force someone to be faithful or honest if they don't want to be, and trying to hold on to what's broken only makes things worse. I've moved on, not necessarily with someone new yet, but I'm open to the idea of trusting again someday when the time is right and I feel safe. Right now, I'm focusing on me, on my career, my family, my friends. I want to be whole again, not just for myself, but for the people who truly care about me. I don't dwell on her anymore. I don't think about Jason either. They're part of my past now, lessons I had to learn the hard way. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone reading this, someone who's going through the same pain I did, it's this: never ignore your instincts. Don't justify the little signs. Don't brush off your feelings. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And don't be afraid to walk away even if it hurts, because staying in a toxic, dishonest relationship will only damage you further. You deserve honesty, respect, and love from someone who truly values you. Anything less is not worth your soul. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches us who we really are. It forces us to find strength we didn't know we had. I've learned that surviving heartbreak is about resilience, about standing back up, dusting yourself off, and choosing to move forward. And no matter how dark it may seem now, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to be willing to find it, and most importantly, you have to believe you're worth it.